But what's your thoughts, right? Is he right? Would universal basic income create an underclass of leeches that will then cause the middle class to be angry at them because they're not producing value and then cause issues? Or is this just the next level of capitalism? Yeah, go ahead. What's your thoughts based on what you comprehend from the discussion?
Well, I'm really. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I'm coming blind into the stream because I wasn't watching all the way through. But I was just hearing just empty noise from the cheap seats, so I just decided to come in see what's going on. So what is going on? What's the guy's position? That's just to summarize. There's an underclass that is dependent on the state for sustenance. And is he railing against that, or is he telling us that that's the way for the future?
Okay, good question. So let me conceptualize it for you and everyone else watching. There is something that governments around the world, specifically rich countries, are working on called universal basic income. You're from the UK. It's similar to the credit thing. What's it called? Universal credit. But it's a little bit different that everyone is allowed to get it, regardless whether they're poor or rich. That's what universal basic income. Now, this was conceptualized because as capitalism became more labor intensive on machines and AI, human contribution. For example, if you work in a factory and you're a human and you have your hands harmed
I think I
by
get the gist. They want to
uh,
put the whole world on gyro, and they put the workforce on machines and automation. Is that the summation of it?
yeah, they wanna make the whole world give everyone who works in the world, oh sorry, who exists in the world, a minimum amount of money that they can pay for rent, food, and water. And this guy is saying that this will
So
create an
what
underclass.
would be the use? What would be the use of people under that system? So if everything goes into AI and automation, and then that creates a redundancy for the human input. So then what would be the purpose of human beings?
Okay, so this is only okay. Good question, right? So under this system, they are they are leveraging the fact that human beings will have hierarchical differences. For example, an AI can't make a fun YouTube channel. An AI can't, become the top consultant on confusing cases. There's going to be some jobs that the human intuition is going to still be prevalent, and maybe even dexterity in certain circumstances. So there'll always be an elite jobs that exist. However, these low rung jobs of laborers will be replaced by the machines. So they're basically saying we'll give everyone some money, maybe $1,500 a month to pay rent, food, and water. Then anyone else who works or is qualified to work can work and get extra money. But this guy thinks that this is communism. He doesn't seem to understand that this is not about equality, but this is actually a way to stop people from rioting because machines are taking their jobs.
It's actually a lot more insidious and darker than that. Actually, let me tell you when I pressed the panic button on this particular narrative. I actually pressed the panic button on this narrative about 5 7 years ago. So I was in a supermarket in Woolwich, which I Tesco actually, which I frequented because I was working in the council building then. I used to be a civil servant back in those days. Um, so I went into the supermarket, I made my purchase, and was going to the till to be attended to be attended to by whichever by a person. And then suddenly I came towards where the till sections were, and then I saw one or two hours manned by people, and then I saw a whole bank of machines, which is a self-service. So that already told me that that was the beginning of the redundancy of the human input in business. Right. You have you can't have automation running YouTube channels, but I think you can chat GPI or whatever you guys call it. if you mix that with AI, you probably have a better platform than yours and mine. So there's that. The way I see it going the only job see left are in law, that's one, and the topmost in. So those are the only jobs. So the people that will continue to service this new technology that's taking us to wherever it is that they're taking us to. We're going into darker times, and you will see the world depopulating because the human being will start to become redundant. And I'm not saying in the far distant future. I'm saying in the immediate 10 years thereabout.
Okay, shout out, shout out. I don't think the human will become redundant. I think what will happen is those who are especially, um, yeah, one man is having a Nigerian internet. I think what will happen is humans will evolve to prioritizing those who have intuition. Do you know what that intuition is, one man?
You tell me.
Well, unless you want to answer that question, what is intuition?
Sorry, is my connection better now? I think somebody is telling me I'm chopping up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Ike.
Well, that'd be creativity in this context.
Mhm. Yeah. So one man, the creative aspect of human intelligence will be the one that's reigning out. So although you are half right, we are going to be losing the economic system that we have currently to machines because again, you can't sue a machine. Sorry, a machine can't sue you. It's your property. A person can sue you if they're working in your factory and they lose their arm. That's what $30,000 or whatever it is, as well as some dividends for a certain period of time. A machine won't do that. So yes, we are going to go down that machine route, but there is certain things that computers just won't do at any time soon, which is the ability to be creative. So yeah, how do you respond to that one, man?
You say the ability to be creative, but I've seen AI generated music that is actually better than music sung by an actual person. I've seen AI generated scripts, novels, outlets or whatever, the creative sector, I've seen that generated better than something that's actually been done by a human being. And because the bank of knowledge has been condensed into this mass computing system, into the internet space, if you have this AI instructed to generate whichever nuance in creativity, it would generate it better than the most gifted human being there is. So the I don't really think you get the full flavor of what's going on because the only jobs that will be left are jobs that service that AI space, deep high end IT stuff and maybe legal stuff as well. Even engineering will go, so I cannot see, if this trajectory of evolution carries on, I cannot see how we will escape the redundancy. I think the world will experience mass depopulation 20, 30, 50 years.
Okay, Ike, what's your thoughts? Do you agree with one man?
Do I agree with one man? I don't have to I don't have to agree or disagree. So there are a couple of layers here, right? There's this layer of the prior layer regarding his explanation of why the crazy behavior in people. And he gave an economic explanation, how they were promised a certain kind of life. I'll touch on that last, right? And you're right that he is kind of doing that shadow thing that his brother does by giving the presumably one, the explanation with the most parsimony, the most parsimonious being the one that is broadest, most high level, by that escaping all kinds of granular stuff that he can escape, right? But I'll get to that last. On this point of creativity, which you're bringing up, and one man addressed. And I knew one man was going to talk about AI generated art. Um, and it is valid because there is a valid question regarding, well, what is this creativity thing? And AI is going to get better and better at it. At some point, it becomes indistinguishable. And if it's indistinguishable, what's the point? So there are two things I want to say. The first thing has to do with the fact that humans can play all kinds of games, right? Right now, there's an economic game that is based on, you go to the factory, you move your hands, that's long gone, but let's just say it's still present, at least generally speaking, in a lot of spaces. Uh, but other games can be created. You can be in a completely AI generated space playing games that are like SimCity, right? And completely earning, magical AI generated tokens. By AI, I'm just talking about computer generated stuff, and still get meaning from that, right? And in there, some of the creative people, along with the creative AI, will help in the generation of these new games, new gods, new values, new whatevers. Now, there obviously is an issue with that because we evolved in a particular environment, right? We're already seeing issues regarding the games that we play now, right? The way in which we gain satisfaction sitting behind computers and whatnot, right? Not being aligned with the way we evolved, right? So I'm talking about now going to a different space, playing a different game, which is even further removed from the, shall we say, natural whatever, right? Or maybe some people will be like, hey, universal basic income. We have the AI is generating all this wealth for us. Let's go back and start playing Farmville in terms of actually real Farmville. Let's go back to the land, right? And some creative people, and again, AI can facilitate that kind of thing, right? So different people will find different ways to best suit their evolutionary needs with the way in which society is currently structured. Back to the point about creativity, I think that because AI can be shown, the process of AI, right, can be shown, it will people will always prefer the human art. I'm not saying that we've gotten to that point yet, and I'm going to talk about the process because you can go right behind, the AI generated art, and you can see that it could have generated 10,000 or a million other ones, right? Meanwhile, the human had the chance to do just one. We're limited, in other words. I think the fact that the human is limited in its output is going to be what generates the value, right? Generally speaking, scarcity, or shall I say limitedness, is valued by us, right? For evolutionary reasons and whatnot. But the fact that, you know, uh, Tolstoy could only write one War and Peace, right? As opposed to AI could write like 10,000 and then give you the output, right? But if you look behind the algorithm, you can see the other 10,000 ones that he could have done. People, I suspect, it'll cheapen the value of that AI generated book, even though it's as good as War and Peace, with all the great flourishes in language and whatnot, right? But the fact that that one man, let's say, one man had one chance to create because of his inherent human limitedness, and the fact that he's also one man, he also comes with other baggage as well. The fact that he is limited as a human and can only put this one output will then give it value, right? I think that that can be intuitively seen. Now, will that be mass generated and propagated? That is yet to be seen, right? After all, we're just kind of speculating. Okay, so I said that there are three things I wanted to kind of touch on. First of all, was this general parsimonious explanation regarding the general trajectory of human society vis-a-vis the economic situation, which is getting worse and worse in the West. And then I talked about this AI art thing. And okay, and the two things I'm talking about, the AI art is AI creativity, generally speaking. The first one was basically that creative humans can come up with different games that we can play outside of the current game that we're playing right now. And we have changed games. There was hunter gatherer, then there's the Neolithic revolution with agriculture and whatnot, right? And then we started playing a different game, right? We will, I think, are quite adaptable when it comes to getting meanings from different games that we can play, different social orders. As I said, new values, new gods, new games, new ways of getting that juice. And then the AI art, I think it's actually interesting, though right now it's not as good as some human art, but I think that the endless proliferation of AI art, and because you can look behind the scenes and you can see that it could write 10,000 War and Peace, it will then, people will still then crave the one War and Peace that can be written by a more limited entity. Now, let me go back to his parsimonious argument. Oh, I don't know. Kay, do you want to? Is there anything you wanted to? Am I making sense?
I did want to push back against some of the things you said, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, so generally making sense, and you did say you're going to mention something on more of the broad strokes as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, yeah. Before I went there, I was like, okay, because I just talked about the AI thing and the two levels, the creative, the games, and also the fact that people may, and again, it's a may, okay, value the limitedness of the human as opposed to the ability for the AI to proliferate such and such. But the broad strokes thing, yes, I agree that he's doing that thing whereby he goes to a certain level and then gives an argument. But it is true that there is an embedded growth obligation, right? It actually spells out ego, right? There's an embedded growth obligation, generally speaking, in the economy and in many systems, right? So we're always talking about the growth, right? We're obligated to grow. And there are situations whereby, and you could argue that the United States has put itself in this particular situation, situations whereby you overextend yourself with regards to this obligation and the promise, as Brett mentioned, the promise that this growth will actually happen and it will actually bestow upon the future generations the life that they were promised, right? And then we're seeing that we're falling short. We know the stories in terms of real income not actually going up for the majority of people. For the bottom 80%, the real income is actually going down, right? Meaning income versus inflation, rising of debt levels, and all these other kinds of things. And the growth which we were promised, and basically when you promise this growth, right, you borrow against it, right? You print money against it. Don't worry, we're going to grow into the future. We're going to have replicators and transporters and all kinds of things. We have not seen this growth. And simply put, in the world of quote unquote atoms, in the world of things, right, as opposed to the world of computers, we have not seen that growth. All the growth is in, look, what are the big companies in the United States, right? Facebook. What the hell does Facebook actually do, produce for you, right? Does it make your chair better, your carpet better? Is it a flying car? Does it give you the Star Trek replicator? Somebody puts it in a particular way where it says, we have nothing in Star Trek, but we have the Star Trek computer, right? We have AI now. We can talk to the computer, so on and so forth. So we have growth in zeros and ones. But the world of atoms, the world of energy, transportation, materials, and all these other things, we have not seen that growth. And that is reflected in the general economic condition of the people. So there is a point there that a lot of the social unrest that you see manifesting itself in, for example, the way that Brett was kicked out of his school is a reaction, unconscious maybe, to the fact that these people are not seeing the growth that they were promised. So I'll shut up.
Okay, shout out to you. One man, you wanted to respond?
Yes, no, I think Ike was somewhat lost in the funk of it. I couldn't quite grasp half of the things I was saying.
Of
But
course you couldn't.
yeah, well, yes, for reasons of functionality, but from my limited prism, um, you're talking about the uniqueness of the human input, which will still be a distinguishing factor, which is sellable outside of the mass automation of mass production of AI. I think you're missing it because let's take NFTs for instance, non-fungible tokens. So these are some of the most expensive arts out there. In and of itself, it has its own uniqueness. It has its own human experience. It has its own limitations, and all of the parameters that we use to judge our art is embedded in that. And it's embedded in that because these things generate out of the human experience. So they're not external to it, they're not artificial to it, they're not imitating or mimicking, they're drawing because it's a mass bank, the internet space, the knowledge space that these things can generate from. And they can generate even to a higher level than that limited human perception that you were talking about. But the broader strokes of where my concerns are is that this automated system that the world is fast tracking towards is going to lead to a redundancy in human beings. So, because the mass of human interaction with income is at a is at a physical level. So physical labor, um, non-specialized work, etc., etc. All of these things being automated. I cited you the example of a checkout person in a supermarket that has now been redundant to automation. So that's one example. The mass of farming will be made redundant to automation. That's another example. Accounting will go to automation, the mass of it. That's another redundancy. Engineering will go to redundancy because it will, in fact, that more so under threat than anywhere else. So a lot of these spaces, as these things continue to be perfect, and they're talking about quantum. Oh, what was I watching on Joe Rogan just yesterday or the day before? They're talking about some quantum computing, etc., etc. They're talking about a God theory. So they get to those spaces and they are fast tracking towards those spaces, it essentially makes the human being redundant, apart from a niche 10-15% of human beings that have a peculiar specialism needed by that space. And that is where my concern is. So, not whatever highfalutin, whatever it is that Ike was saying that I didn't really understand, but that's where my concerns are.
Can I say something?
No.
One
Why?
second, Choma. There's a line. Flexed up is
No,
next. Andre, then you go.
I'm not trying to comment on your show. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. You know, I just want to ask.
We said pause, bro.
Yeah, one
Wait,
second, Choma.
wait for
Yeah,
the line.
wait until the line is finished. Go ahead, Flexed up.
Yo, so what's up, everybody? What I think is that you guys were saying what humans will be needed for, uh, if pretty much AI takes over, right?
Hold on one second.
In the
Sorry. Kaizo, is chivalry not a word in Kenya? No, it's a bit of a
No,
backwater space,
equal
right?
rights, equal rights.
Well, what's
First
all
come,
this?
first serve.
He's a boy, so why are you surprised? I
Yeah,
told you,
go ahead.
man.
Yeah, one second, Choma. Go ahead, Flexed up.
I mean, if it's a quick comment, she could go ahead.
I just
Yeah,
wanted to tell Ike that we miss him on the show and we want him back. That's all. But
we
Kaiser, we don't.
don't care. Yeah, yeah.
All right, Ike, we miss you. We need you back.
Bro,
He
why
ran
you
away.
sound like a hood rat? Like you need to make out of there.
Well, Ike, we need you back on One Man Wins
No,
Them
no,
All
no, no, no,
show.
no. We don't. We left the hood. We don't want to go back.
No, it's not the hood. Ike was
No,
actually
no,
way
no.
Sorry,
more.
I
Choma.
see the
Hold on.
picture. It is the
Sorry,
hood.
Choma. I have to apologize for Kaizo
Oh,
for
I understand.
all of the English that he speaks. He's still a Kenyan.
I know. No, no, he's a
He's not a
boy. No,
Yoruba man. So I
One
just
Man.
am
Bro,
so
what is?
sorry.
He's the boy.
He's a boy.
Are you a weirdo?
I know how boys behave, of course.
Yes.
Okay. You're
But
like a
you know,
grown
But don't worry,
woman.
I'll man him up eventually. But
One
don't
Man,
worry,
I was the
it's
one.
a work in progress.
I was the one that told you about Kaiser and them. They're childish. I only came here to say hi
Who the
to Ike.
fuck are you? No one knows
Oh no,
you.
no, 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 not that language, please.
They're
Please.
kids. It's okay. I understand. But anyway, Ike, we miss you, and we appreciate you coming back.
Nah, he don't appreciate
Bye.
you. He don't want you.
Okay, bye, guys.
Oh,
Nah,
see
you're
you later,
good.
Choma. Apologies. It's like with the
Yo,
kindergarten.
one man, why you being a simp? Why you muting me
No,
for a random woman?
no
And
problem,
that's
One
not
Man.
a
It's
random
okay.
woman.
No, no,
God,
no. It is a random woman, okay? It is
no,
a
no, she's not a
random.
random woman. She's Choma. So that's
Nah,
completely
she's
different.
not
Choma.
chill, but she came here to bully Ike, okay? What kind of woman she
Bully
is?
Ike. She came
Yeah.
here to say hello to Ike, who is an old friend of hers. You don't know the history between Choma and Ike.
No, no, no. One man, I don't take your word for a random woman, okay? You are friends with
She's
her. I
not.
don't take your
Okay,
word.
just carry on. Just leave her alone and carry on.
Okay, we
Yeah.
just want to hear dust. Maybe she can
So
maybe speak about.
yeah. So basically, real quick, my comment is, if AI takes over, I think that in this scenario, humans will could potentially actually have more value. Um, humans, I guess one function that humans would still need to carry out, I guess, potentially, uh, when AI takes over is one is consumption, and that has always been the case, no matter what technological inventions have been created. Consumption has always been a constant. Not that it'll continue, but I think it's something worth looking at. And then the other point is, I think that you guys were speaking about creativity. I think it's even bigger than that. I think that if you zoom out, creativity is only a portion of the narrative overall. So what kind of related to what Ike was saying, the need to kind of continue the narrative would also be a part of humans function. And the other thing is, if AI is able to mass produce, then I think that anything created by a human could ultimately end up being somewhat of like a luxury good, because now it has a story. It may have quote unquote mistakes, things that give it character. And you know that many luxury goods, I mean, most of them are handmade, and even though we have mass production and we could create them, we can mass produce them, they still have a lot more value than some of these mass produced items. So, and I think that with, the behavior with luxury goods buyers is that as their income increases, the percentage that they spend on luxury items also increases. So I would also look at that trend, and it could potentially link up. It could be linked to that idea that you know, uh, maybe um, human creations become a luxury item. So maybe the rich or the
Yo,
elite in this
D2,
sense
can you
will
shut the fuck
buy
up?
will buy some of these items, and maybe they, you know, our perception now, if we were to look into the future to this, is that uh, they would be buying these items for ridiculous amounts of money. So that's my contribution.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, generally, I want to comment that quickly. We can let Andre and then one man go through, right? I don't know if you guys have seen Cowboy Bebop, but or any
Yeah,
of these
yeah, I
sort of
have
like
seen it. It's an anime. What's
right,
up with
all
it?
these interstellar animes and sci-fi shows, whereby basically AI can make amazing music and it's accessible for the normies, right? One of the tenets of capitalism really is
It
availability.
creates machinery,
Yeah,
the
so
anime.
yeah, so there will be a new value addition based on artisans, authenticity. For example, one very very basic example is diamond, right? Right now, um, you can get a lab grown diamond at a fraction of the cost of you know millions of years pressure heat diamonds from Namibia or Botswana at a fraction of the cost. And you know what? To every sort of normal scientific testing, you can't tell the difference, right? You only tell the difference because of specific fingerprints regions done by some expert who's an expert on top of an expert. But the value of natural diamonds is much higher because of the story, right? The narrative. So ultimately, one man, I agree with that fact that the economic circumstance will change. But I also think I like Ike's argument, which is basically, look, we've been through Neolithic times.
It's a
We've been
narrow
through,
argument, Kaizo, because you are narrowing it to niche areas, creativity, one-offs, etc., etc. What my
so let me ask you.
argument is, yeah, go on.
Let me ask you the change between hunter gatherer, right? Let me give an example of hunter gatherer community, right? The Hadzabe, right? Clan would still look like
No,
eating cheeses.
right,
Right.
Dusty.
You want to say that the change between the Hadzabe and an agrarian community like the Southeast Bantus, right? You're trying to say that that change is
And
smaller than
another Dusty,
basically
bro. What do
AI?
you mean? No different.
Right. You want to say that
Strictly.
that change is smaller than AI to what we are today. So exponentially, AI is way more exponentially different than
Yeah, but
it's
Kaiser, don't you think those Hazaze, like if they modernize, they wouldn't like their way of life wouldn't exist because like they can't really blend in with society. Like they're not like a large group. They're like they make up of like thousands of people in the genetic whatever. They have to join a new society, and they have to, they meet. It means like they have to intermarry with the Kenyans, and that's gonna destroy their culture. Don't you think? That
You're still not
saying
getting it. You're still not getting it, Kaizo. The example you gave is a change within still the human experience.
no, 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 no. One
So,
minute, I'm saying like their way of life is good for them. It's not maybe not. It's not good for us, but it makes sense why they live like that because it is actually good for their culture for existing. You know.
no. Here is the point I'm making. So if you evolve from the hunter gatherer to a more sedentary life, farming experience, etc., etc., etc. That's still an expansion of the human experience. So that's an evolution from somewhat of a primitive way of being to a more evolved way of being. But this evolution now that we're having is evolving outside of the human experience into an artificial space. So if that artificial space gets preeminence, it's inevitably it's quite clear in my mind. So I'm not quite sure why you're not getting it. It is quite clear that it will lead to human redundancy, and they're already talking about a universal suffrage of wage to keep people out of the workspace because their work is being taken over by artificial automation. So that begins then the redundancy of the human person. So of what use are those people that are kept on social benefits with no value or use? You know, so that's the redundancy of the human space. So that's the point that I am making, not the nicheness of art or the evolution from hunter gatherer to a more sedentary sort of a farming. No, I'm talking about the redundancy of the human space because the human capacity to earn, to live, etc., is being subsumed by automation, machine, AI technology, chat GPI, you know,
Chat
self-checkout at the
GPT, whatever. Yeah.
So
whatever
there's
it
a
is,
few
I'm
errors.
from
One
Oyo, you know, self service at the supermarkets, all of these things. So I'm telling my point is that it's leading somewhat to the redundancy of the human, especially the lower rungs of the human experience. Yeah, that's my point.
Okay,
okay.
you make a good point. Okay, let's go to Kaiser with the AI and Cowboy Beatbox. What point are you trying to
So
make out of that?
yeah, so one man. First of all, you're making several errors, right? One prevalent error that you're making is the assumption that somehow everything is linear, that humans will just go to the most efficient system, um, and then follow that system and then make everyone redundant without understanding that there's policy, there's law, there's the fact that humans won't allow themselves to be replaced um, by machines outright. We have government, right? We have policymakers. We have all these things, right? Humans won't allow themselves to
Kaiser, I
just get.
think it is good though in certain places in the world, machinery replacing
Yeah,
like having machinery for mining, for example, is actually really good. It is more productive.
no, there are going to be some circumstances where the modality between efficiency as well as
Mhm.
safety actually takes in bigger account than anything else, right? But if you just look at this whole thing, we have policy makers, right? Machines will not replace human labor. You know, labor can be intellectual or otherwise
I
any
think
kind.
they will do in most places. Like when it comes to like heavy mining in
Oh,
my
sorry,
country, for
Andre, you've been kicked out. Shout out to Ike said he sent 100 to get rid of you. Let me see if I can find the message quickly. I think you're probably interrupting the conversation a little bit too much. Um, yeah, it says the panel is not popular enough. We don't need all voices in this kind of conversation. Oh well, yeah, shout out to you for the $100 super chat. We appreciate the support by kicking out Andre. But well, beat me to it. Yeah. So flexed up. The question is right. Do you think one man is correct, or do you agree with me? Right. In the near future, policy won't allow humans to be replaced. And at the point where we do have humans to be replaced, we'll have different games. We'll be interstellar. At that point, we'll be going to Mars, mining different planets. There's going to be a hierarchy created, just like Star Wars. I don't, I don't know why we're having the issue of having imagination. Maybe one man will be replaced, right? Because he doesn't have the imagination. He will definitely fail in this new system. What's your thoughts on that?
I
Uh,
definitely will because I'm built of a different sort of stock. But I
yeah, I agree with you and I.
you will get there eventually because often when I say stuff, it probably takes people moments to get there, but you will get there to get to the understanding that I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, so yeah, Kaizo, I agree with you and Ike. I already, I mean, you can already see that humans don't necessarily always prioritize efficiency anyway. So I don't know that that changes that much just because AI is on the scene. Um, More so, we
Next up,
no, go
let me
ahead.
ask you a question. What's the price of efficiency?
What do you mean? What is the price of efficiency? It's not even just about price. It's just the way that humans are wired. So
You know that
the way that you're
you know that efficiency is paid for in human jobs. Do you know that?
no, I mean, I get what you're trying to say, but I could say that now. I could say, how come we retired Concorde and there aren't more supersonic commercial airliners? In that regard, we've kind of regressed, right? It wasn't that the more efficient mode of transportation. Humans don't necessarily operate like that, one man. If we did, things would be a lot different.
That's probably a poor example to cite because the Concorde was never really efficient. It had speed, and that's the only thing that it did have. But
Now the Concorde wasn't efficient. Come on, one man.
no, it
Come
wasn't
on.
efficient. It was cumbersome. It was expensive. If it was efficient, it would still be a going concern.
wouldn't
So
they wouldn't they be trying to make it more efficient
One
since you
man,
have that
actually,
level
no,
of
no, no. They
speed?
pivoted into something that was more cost. It wasn't as a concept. It's a bit like the example that I cited actually, that some niche peculiarity in the human creation. So it was it was more of an art piece than an actual aircraft for efficiency or travel. It was just a test of what is capable to be achieved out there. Or if it was efficient, it was still being used. It's just as
Couldn't
simple
we
as
say couldn't we say the can't we use the same argument for automobiles versus wagons?
no, you couldn't because the automobile is more efficient than it's more cost effective.
So
Uh, it,
the hypersonic commercial airliner is not more efficient than a regular commercial airliner?
no, because the cost of build, the running cost is too cumbersome a concept,
But the
for mass
cost, but the
adaptation.
cost of technologies always start as more expensive, and as you try to find ways to
Yeah,
make
but it's
them efficient, they
cumbersome, is what
drop in
I
price,
said.
right?
It's cumbersome, is what I said. Look, if the Concorde was a concept that had commercial viability, it will still be running. Would it not? It would
Not
still.
necessarily, and that's what my argument is. My argument is that humans, and this is why AI is being created, right? In some one of the reasons, right? Humans can't necessarily zoom out and see all of these macro trends uh, interact with one another. Like they can't necessarily always see that. So maybe something is more efficient, especially if time and resources are put into it to where down the line they're able to create some level of savings when it comes to cost and time that humans may not always anticipate, or that humans may have interests that
sorry to
conflict
stop.
with that
Sorry to
process.
stop. If we
Go
stay
ahead.
with the example, if you stay with the example that you're citing, for Concord to work, infrastructurally, there has to be a change globally in terms of the airport facilitation, air traffic control, all of these concepts. So
So one man, do you
the
think
whole
that
of the aviation
billionaires,
industry has to
one man,
make a
Yeah,
mass
what about the
adaptation.
build out of
do you
national
think
highways?
billionaires?
What about the build out of traffic lights? What about the build
Wait,
out of
wait,
all
okay,
of these things?
just 1 second, please, 1 second, please. And I think Kay was also trying to interrupt you guys, but so Flexed Up, what I think Flexed Up is doing, one man, is he's trying to create a spectrum or a dichotomy. So it's not about the example, right? There's a trade-off between efficiency and robustness, right? In one, at least in one way. The general thing he's trying to say, right, is that human beings don't always go for efficiency because efficiency has a cost. And if it costs us too much in some other way in our hierarchy of priorities or values, we will forego efficiency and go with inefficient systems. One way in which efficiency is paid for is via loss of robustness. Robustness means redundancy, right? An efficient system is I have one supply chain, everything comes from China. It's a one you could compare like a authoritarian communist type of situation, right, where you have one leader, one head of the snake. If I cut off that, and it's very efficient, right? Order comes from top, boom, goes all the way through, but it's easy to kill, right? Again, I'm just kind of create this dichotomy here of that there's a trade-off between efficiency and other values, right? So you can have a more the opposite of that one-headed system, democracy. Things are slower and blah blah blah, but it's a multi-headed hydra, harder to kill, right? So that's one example in which there's a dichotomy between efficiency and other values. So if efficiency starts killing your humanness or your whatever else that we may seem, such as the people who go for more organic or natural or whatever, we see those people choose a less efficient system because they prefer XYZ, right? So it's not about the examples I'm giving, nor the examples that Flexed Up is giving. He's just saying that there does exist a space whereby on the one hand you have efficiency, and then on the other hand you have the other trade-offs that you have to give, and human beings make different choices in different times.
Yeah, but that's what I'm disagreeing with because Flexed Up, and I think you align with that. You're standing efficiency up as a standalone, but efficiency is just a subset of a wider whole. You know, so because ultimately it's human use that determines really the usefulness or lack thereof of anything. There are countless things that are efficient, but are they practicable? Are they practical? Are they effective to the human experience? Are they the best use? The best traffic through for that space? And that is where it really lies. So it's not really about efficiency, which is just it's a subset. Efficiency is not a standalone; it's a subset. Because if you want efficiency, then you program a machine. So this idea that yeah, it can be efficient, and be too expensive, impractical, and novel use, not applicable to the economic
So let me
realities
give
of his master. So
fine, fine.
efficiency is a subset,
Okay.
not a
So let me give you an
standalone.
example then, right? Why don't we have legalized human cloning? It's not because it's expensive, right? No, it's because of people and the policies that they're comfortable with, right? Why do you think we don't have legalized human cloning? Why not?
We do have legalized human cloning.
In which country?
It's called IVF.
No, 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 no. IVF is not cloning. IVF is taking two different gametes and making them join. I'm
No,
talking
no, no,
about
no. I'm just
taking
no, no.
your
I'm
somatic
just being
cells from
pedantic
your
to
body,
not
one
to.
man. Hang on. We're talking about taking your somatic cells from your body, one man, and then creating an identical copy, right? Genetic identity, right? That's anyway. A genetic identity, sorry, identical copy of your cells using your somatic cells. This is not legalized in any country that I know of. So why don't we have that? Because you talk about efficiency. So give me a good reason why that is not legalized right now.
I think that's the poor example to make, whichever points you're trying to make.
It's not a poor example. Example is just because something is efficient, right? It doesn't mean that that thing is going to be allowed in policy because people vote on policy that they feel comfortable with, right? We don't have designer babies yet, although I think we will at some point. For the same reason. So just because something's efficient, right? Right now, you could eugenically speaking, you can clone my DNA, the perfect hybridization of a human being, but it's not allowed because it's illegal. Instead, we have all these diversity of people like you that still exist and breathe.
Well, sorry, Flex up wants to come in.
Hey, one man, right? Um, the other thing, and I agree with what Kaizo and Ike were saying before me, but even more so, um, vested interests can run counter to, quote unquote efficiencies. If I have an interest in making sure, let's say, hey, like Nigeria, let's say I have, I import a lot of generators and I have, a position of power, right? I want to lobby the government to make sure that there's no electricity grid set up for the whole nation because I want to keep selling generators. Now, for the whole, for just the greater population, it would be more efficient to have that electric grid. But for me, just a single node within this greater system, it may be better for me to keep my generator business going and keep lobbying to not have electricity, even though it's more efficient for more people, right? So that's even one part of it that we really haven't even discussed is vested interest has definitely stopped certain technologies or certain efficiencies from going through. And this is a common example.
Yes, but that again is somewhat of a it's not dissimilar to the example that Akai. So it's a red herring. Yes, as a standalone, probably logical, but what I am saying is mass human
So let me ask
adaptation.
you a question.
Yeah.
Mhm. So let me ask you a question so that we can move the conversation forward. What do you think will happen after mass human replacement by AI? Is it going to be chaos? Are we going to fight? Or are we going to become slaves like the Matrix, whereby we're all stuck up in some kind of VR world and using brain, our brains connected to some kind of server where human brain can calculate like billions of processes per second, right? So, is it going to be? Are we going to turn our brains into a cheap processing power for some super AI computer while we're living in some kind of AI? What is basically after we get replaced by AI? What's next?
I know. I already said there'll be a mass global depopulation. One, because the people that cannot be retrained or access that space, which is the mass of the human population, they will be bred out of the system. So there'll be a mass depopulation, and if you want to go to the extremes, there'll be somewhat of an automation of the human experience as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're being somewhat if that was a cheeky remark, whatever. But it's not beyond the realms of the logical flow of all of this for the human being to actually be shaped, as we're going forward.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
However, so fine, but there's a logical flaw in your statement. Sure. So there'll be a depopulation, right? Of
Do you
the
accept that first?
It's possible. Sure, let's follow that train of thought. So there's a depopulation. Now, the only issue I have here is when those people, right, the elites who can still afford slash be productive enough in this new economy to have children, won't those children also regress to the mean, meaning the children won't be suffice to survive in this new world? So ultimately, I want you to walk me through this depopulation. What eventually happens to the human race in your example?
I think the human, if we're going to follow through just the trajectory of it, I think the human population will depopulate to an alarming almost near 40%, if not even 60%. And I think of the left population, the ones that are of real value to continuous growth and evolution will be around about a bracket sort of 10-15%. Because we are getting into the realms of essentially an automated sort of world structure. That's just what I think anyway. I'm still putting the thoughts together, but it doesn't. It looks quite alarming, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not really against what you're saying. That is a possible outcome. I just don't think it's a likely trajectory, based on how I think the human spirit goes. And I think I liked Ike's argument the most. I know you think there is a difference between going um, from hunter gatherer. You think a difference between hunter gatherer to agrarian is not as big as going from what we have now to obviously AI. You think one is still human to human, and then you think this one is human to tool. But I don't think that is necessarily correct, right? We had changes in warfare, we had nuclear weapons, etc. These things haven't actually been used in violence in war, right? Since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as an example. I just don't think people are going to be allowing themselves to be destructive if there are checks and balances. But anyways, I want you to respond, maybe add something there uh, on the trajectory aspect and likely future outcomes, or anywhere that you think is relevant.
No, I think that everything is at play, right? Obviously, what one man is saying regarding the depopulation we already see that there is something that is unfit about Western industrialized, uh, technological, rich democracies, right? And by Western, I don't mean just in the West. I'm talking about things like Japan, even, right? So it's a collection of those things there: Western, industrialized, technologically advanced, rich, democratic. When I say unfit, I'm just defining fitness as in reproduction, right? Propagating itself into the future. I'm talking about birth rates, right? So obviously, it's an amalgamation of things, and these are complex systems. Hence, it's difficult to point to the fact, right? And AI might just be a further continuation of the death of this particularly unfit modality, right? So what one man is saying is in play. What I was speculating regarding and what you're talking about regarding the change of games, right? You play the hunter-gatherer game, and then you play the Neolithic Revolution game with agriculture. Yes, and maybe the nomads like Genghis Khan come and kill you because you're just like sitting cattle to them, the agriculture people, right? But I think that the individual human, which is where this particular point is really coming from, as you mentioned, the human spirit, is quite malleable when it comes to the different games that they're willing to play. And I gave the example of even if in AI times, and again, these are speculations, right? Everything remains to be seen. That was my first point. My first point is everything is in play. We can assign certain probabilities, but that's just bets at this time. It remains to be seen. I'm saying that it might be possible that the next level game that we play is very removed from the physical world, very removed from getting your meaning from having to go to a factory or doing engineering or things like that. That it may be freaking NFTs in the metaverse, right? And people will still get their kicks from it. You may become a vat in a brain in a jar, vis-a-vis, similar to the Matrix, for example. And it is what it is. All that stuff is in play. But I think that, to your point, if we keep enough competition, by that I mean the similar competition with like the agriculture people and then Genghis Khan coming in and killing off, if we don't all become one thing, such as, okay, the global society of AI brains in a vat, that there is a chance that we don't completely go away. Because if we become one thing, then we have that problem of non-robustness that I talked about earlier. Rather efficient to be one thing, right? But not robust. Another example of this robustness thing, because I like harping on it, is the most efficient stool, for example, is a three-legged stool, right? You have a certain amount of wood, you need to make stools, you make three-legged stools, right? very efficient. It stands no waste of wood, but it's not going to last as long as a five-legged stool, because a five-legged stool can afford to lose a couple of legs. So if we stay robust, if we stay, shall we say, we have these disparate systems going on where, some people over here are becoming AI brains in a vat, some people are becoming something else, and so on and so on and so on. Then there is a chance for that competition to happen, such that even if one side completely really does depopulate, then we can um, still go further. Now, the danger, though, is in this becoming one thing, right? Because civilizations have risen and felt fall before. But the more we become one thing, now it becomes this one civilization. And if it falls, that's it, right? But I just wanted to, that's my last thing there I had to say.
Yeah. Actually, I'll comment on everything you said in a second. I want to respond to Flexed Up comment. Went from stationary worker to digital nomads. That's a very good example. Um, I don't want to be one of these guys saying that, hey, look, every civilization think they're unique and they all collapse. But I think that is something that is probably important to note. Right now, America is a perfect example, right? It's a bit more nuanced, right? But America has great so-called economic activity, yet they're still having issues where people don't like immigrants because they blame immigrants for whatever issues that exist. So I do think this whole hyper technology, all these designer babies, and as again, the technology becomes more reaches a singularity, there will obviously be a humanist sort of sect that will be thriving within their own little world, right? Creating their own laws, societies. And I think what we'll have is a multiplicity of different cultures, more so than a singularity of culture stemming from this sort of thing. I think this is definitely going to test the human experience and which one they prefer to sort of follow. And I think to one man, right, I was trying to get him to kind of reach the penultimate or whatever, just close to what his point is, right? Like at the end of the day, right? For me, I'm thinking, right, if we're gonna go down this AI path, we keep forgetting about materialism.
Look, one man
And
is not here to defend himself, but I think the record vis-a-vis the conversation and the actual recording, which you can slide your dial back on YouTube to hear, stands basically saying that it wasn't about the point, it was about arguing about, street fights, arguing about examples, right? Well, that's not a good example. This is not a great example. Meanwhile, what was being laid out were parameters. One parameter, which Flexed Up came in to say, for example, is there is a trade-off between efficiency and other things that we value. And there are reasons, as we were given, right, to build stools that are not as efficient because they tend to last longer, they're more robust against attack vectors and whatnot. There's a reason we have redundancies when it comes to all kinds of engineering, right? So we don't necessarily always go for the most efficient thing. And the reason why FlexUp was bringing that up is because AI is an efficient vector, right? It is about efficiency. It is about, hey, let's get rid of these workers and blah, 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 blah. So while, yes, efficiency does win a lot, and a lot of these things tend to be pendulums, right? In other words, let's take everything to China, and then boom, populism strikes and says, no, let's bring the work back, right? Or at least the political order needs to respond to the people whom are complaining about the fact that efficiency has been the ruling the day for too long, and the benefits has been accreting to only a slight slice of the population, right? So, point is, we were laying out certain parameters, right? Again, I'm going to go back to the ones that first of all, yes, there's one that we were talking about vis-a-vis the games that human beings are willing to play, and the fact that we as humans are social creatures, okay? So there is something about the book that one man wrote and its limitedness, right? Because it's one man and he can only write one book ever so often. And I know one man, therefore, until AI completely replaces, because you could say, okay, well, how about, when we have the full robots and, one man could be a robot, blah, blah, blah. But again, I think we'll still have that intuition of, okay, unless you start making these robots limited in the way one man is limited, we're not going to get the same juice out of it, right? If I just look behind the scenes and I just see that this thing is just proliferating 10,000 novels a day, and I'm going to be like, it's not as good as the one life lived that produced that one novel because I am programmed that way. I'm not saying that I don't know how that program happened. We evolved to value this type of unitary experience. There's something about proliferation, too many and such that we value less. So that was another parameter that we laid down, right? So one man was arguing and doing street fighting about the examples. Like you could come from my three-legged stool, or you could come from the jet plane, right? The Concorde, or your other example about DNA. And it's just like, okay, what's the point here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So at least we've sort of got that, sorted. He's playing street fights, and yeah, you can attack any example. The examples what we're using are not supposed to be perfect, but just illustrative tools to kind of explain our positions. Okay. So yeah. So moving on, right? I want to take on that point you made about humans being social creatures. As far as I understand, I think this one is um, pretty important. Shout out to one man for the £2 super chat. Street fighting question mark. You can always defend yourself, one man. But street fight basically means you go instead of using modern warfare tools, you're out there going to a street fight. No wins. Anyways, it's just irrelevant street fights over there. D says there's something here with subject object. Maybe we can't embrace AI like human innovation because AI cannot have that dynamic of. So okay, so let me respond to that point. AI doesn't seem that it has that dynamic, but I think actually what will happen ultimately is AI will probably reach artificial generalized intelligence, which, from my definition, would basically mean that AI would become AI will reach a level whereby it will have cognitive performance that is not so dissimilar to human beings.
Well, can we
Mhm.
and I'll let you do this. You're the TI guy, right? So you might be able, whatever. But
Go ahead.
obviously, with the subject object thing, there is a consciousness, and the reason why it's a problem is because that word consciousness is a problem, right? There's a consciousness aspect, and a lot of times people kind of, shall I say, conflate, bring in the consciousness question, and then confuse it with, shall we say, intelligence. So you're saying that we'll reach artificial general intelligence, and for you that necessitates a certain kind of self-referentialness, right?
Yes.
A
Yes.
subjectivity is the point. So you think that they'll become a subject.
Yes. Yeah. Great point for us to make that distinction. So, I actually think AI will reach the point whereby it can reflect, it can go internal, and then it can project outside, um, aka reach true creativity. Let's say, one man was giving examples of like right now with AI, music, and art. I can explain how it works, right, to people listening. If you talk about the art, all it does, oh Lord, what it does is it has a neural network. It goes through comparisons of hundreds of thousands of different images from different artist styles, whether it's watercolor or whatever it is, right? All the various different artistic axioms, right? It actually memorizes. Then it just tries to replicate it. Sometimes it gets closer, sometimes it messes up because it can't do hands or some of these more nuanced things because it's focusing on the face or the general human structure. So right now, I don't think AI is anywhere close to the best artist. It can be more efficient in providing very rudimental, repetitive images, but it's not going to create something creative consistently. It always messes up after a few rounds of it. I'm talking things like DALI 2 or Mid Journey. These are the so-called one of the best AI, art tools that you can use, right? Same thing with music. It goes through, it looks at the basic chord structure, um, memorizes it, and looks at what humans like in songs, uh, the whole structure, and then replicates it singing wise, blah, blah, blah. It can do a decent job, but it is lacking something, which I think is what you're referring to, the subject object and projection of something creative and new. And by creative here, I want to go deeper and stipulate that creativity would necessitate that it can kind of self-referentiate itself and then project onto the FE collective, whatever it is, all the mixtures of whatever's going on there. So I believe AI will reach artificial generalized intelligence where it can actually understand that it exists, whatever that means, right? And be able to deal with the external world based on that self knowledge of existence.
Yeah, so there is obviously, insofar as we're still talking about human beings, and also obviously, because consciousness, there's something interpersonal about consciousness, right? There is the, your consciousness, but when we talk about consciousness, generally speaking, it is the assumption that I make, because consciousness, subjectivity, that is subjective by definition, right? There is no way that you can prove that I have subjectivity, right? I reference myself and then I project to you that you must have, right? And because of that, there is a whole change in the quality of my perception of you, right? Um, the face, right? I project subjectivity to a face, not because of some kind of set of geometric lines and some kind of calculation that imposes that on me, right? It is because I am assuming that this thing has a subjective experience, and because this subjective experience is actually unique in the world, because it is very different from quote unquote the objective world, right? There is a certain an internal and an external, and they never quite meet, right? So we have to be convinced, is my point, that the AI has this, right? So there's a question of, well, does it have it or not? But do you have it? I can't really prove that you do, right? But when we are convinced that it has it, which is a tough thing to do, there are many ways in which people try to do this, right? There is the simple one by our friend, whatever, like that. It's basically like the Chinese room type thing where can you have a conversation with the AI? What's the guy's name? Forget his name, right? Turing, Turing test, right? Turing test has been beat a long time ago, but it is an interesting question regarding how do you get to ascribe subjectivity to really believe that this thing actually is a subject. And when you see it that way,
What about
I think
infinity?
yeah, yes,
So,
go ahead.
so let me create an SI example of what this how this can play out, right? Right now we can have this conversation, we can delve into different levels, different abstractions, create meaningful um, arbitrations about what we're discussing, and go on to infinity, right? Sure, we might, miss some information here and there. We'd have to go refresh, but we can keep the RAM, the random access memory about this long-term memory, as well as now the creativity, being able to put the two things and self reflect and then refer outwards, etc. If AI reaches this point, and I know what you mentioned about the Turing test, right? Well, at that time that was the big thing, etc. But still, I kind of want to say that the Turing test was very linear and non abstract way of trying to figure out if a computer is um, reaching some kind of AGI, right, artificial generalized intelligence. I think it was a bad test. Yes, I know there is hindsight bias going on, but I think basically, and I said this from the beginning, if we reach the point whereby the average and or trained person can't tell the difference between the AI or an actual person through interaction, stop somewhere and say that this is something that exists and it's real enough within our experience.
Okay. And so your point is solid, right? I'm just going to make another statement. It's along the same lines. Yeah, I like the kind of parameters that you've laid on the table with regards to how we could judge subjectivity, right? Now, there is a character to subjectivity. Now, just speaking about the individual subjective experience, there's a character of fragmentation, right? Meaning there is always a sense of yourself in the moment that is viewing other aspects of yourself, right? Now, let's call that fragmentation, right? At no point are you ever like a whole unity, right? There's always, okay, well, it's sad Ike today, it's happy Ike, it's elated Ike, it's Ike today with its particular set of goals and a memory of goals haven't been achieved. It's Ike in a particular frame. If you look at the frame within a desire, a pursuit, and an attainment, right? There are all these different frames in which your subjectivity can take. And obviously, they're all within, as I like to talk about, feeling and image and talk. So there's a particular arrangement of feelings in the body, and then images in the head, cognitive stuff going on in the head that will constitute the particular fragment, which is then viewing other fragments. What are those other fragments? Two ways to look at them. One of them is memory, right? In other words, memory of yourself, Kaizo, yesterday, right? So the fact that there was a Kaizo yesterday, you have a memory of it, is is another fragment which is not present today, but today's fragment is viewing, right? Another way to look at the way in which these fragments appear is intensity. So you may have several fragments present at this time, because the memory one is to try to demarcate timeline wise that there was a particular fragment of yourself in the past. Now there's you observing that, but also there's a question of intensity. So if it's happy Kaizo today, maybe there's some other kind of worried Kaizo that's also kind of present, but it's not very intense vis-a-vis the feelings in your body and the images in your head, right? So this is a quality of subjectivity which cannot be escaped, uh, generally speaking. And you cannot have this whole, there is no one whole 100% Kaizo through time and space and through every feeling or whatever that just kind of is. It's always a fragment of Kaizo looking at the other fragments, which again are either memories or just different vis-a-vis intensity in the manifestation in feeling image talk.
Okay, so let me see if I can break down and add or take away from what you're saying. So if AI could write Schopenhauer and refer to itself um, within the different fragments of existence and again comparative sort of states, that will be closer to basically going down the whole subject dichotomy. And I'm using an objective factors, right, to sort of demarcate this, because obviously, an interview might lead to something, and it might also kind of be missing um, some factors compared to also objectively analyzing how it refers to itself through a philosophical venture. Turing tests ignore the limits of human perception. I agree on that one. I think actually that's where the Turing test sort of failed. And also, Turing test was mostly based on linearity. Um, Again, because obviously computer science at that point was just basically based on calculations. They tried with the analog systems, and they failed. They realized analog computers have issues.
Yeah, I know I dropped off for a second there, but am I to interpret the pauses that you were making an invitation for me to chime in on what you said about Schopenhauer, right? Blah blah blah. If it is, then I'll just kind of re-emphasize that, I said there's this character to subjectivity in the sense that it is fragmented. There's always a sense of yourself viewing other senses or other aspects of yourself. And I said that these other aspects exist. If they exist in the same time, they're going to vary in intensity. That's why one is at this moment the main one, the main version of yourself, looking at the other versions. And then there's also the memory, because you have a memory of yourself. But the main thing is that there is no wholeness. So that one would have to kind of have a way of measuring that for AI to be subjective and self-referential, because I am talking about fragmentation is the self-referentialness, right? How do you refer yourself? By being fragmented, right? So, and anyone can look at themselves and notice this, that there is no ultimate perch, no God's eye view. You're always a piece of yourself viewing other pieces. And I think that this is just my thing, right, of just saying it, blah blah blah. But I think that it is a character, a definitional character that subjectivity has.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I won't really generally disagree. I would like to add and also state that um, I don't really think there's an object subject dichotomy. I think it's all the same. Um, the ultimate subjectivity is cogito, not even cogito ergo sum, right? Just existence, right? If something can know that it exists, I think that's enough. Because think of it this way, right? It's everything you've said is kind of emergent, right? Because if something has IQ, which AI does, which is processing power, if it just knows it exists, whatever that means, and I think it has reached AGI. Everything else is emergent. It would happen automatically.
Yeah. We're referencing ourselves because again, even though we this subject object thing comes up in metaphysics, right? But it is humans that are doing this metaphysics, and we only have access to the world via this subject object thing, and we create this dichotomy because, after all, that's the beginning of analysis, right? It just so happens that the way we experience the world is that the subject or the object exists for the subject, and there is no such thing as some kind of an object out there without
Mhm.
this perceiving subject. And to say that these things are metaphysically separate, of course not. No, there's just existence, but there is a reason why, the mind body problem or subject object and cogito ergo sum. There's a reason why that happens. It's a human issue, right? We have an internal experience, and then there's seemingly an external world, and that continues. So we can imagine, like, well, what is the internal world of the electron? Does it have an internal world, or is it just a question of how it presents itself to me vis-a-vis my, shall I say, concepts and empirical data and whatnot? But anyways, yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, that it is only one. There is no dichotomy.
Okay, but yeah, I definitely see the point there. Um, okay, so okay, look, the problem will always be there, but in practical terms, I do believe the fear and outrage will happen when the machines seem to be able to think like us, with better, seemingly conscious processing abilities. As I stated, human beings' brain processes billions of operations per second, but most of it is no, most of it no, 90 something 0.999% is unconscious processing. So I think the moment where the machines are able to consciously become cognitively better than us and also seemingly subjective, I think that will definitely be enough to cause an outrage. Um, but as I stated, there will be laws, there will be limitations based on policy. And AI, for example, won't be able to have a body that has a strength over a certain amount, right? For security reasons. Yes, it could create its own little rebel group somewhere and all that kind of stuff, but there will be limits that humans will put in place. And also, Ike, I would like to say, like, if the machine reaches a point whereby they could disobey their cognitive, sorry, their programming to a certain extent, then I think that will now kind of lead more to true AGI, whereby, okay, and I'm not talking about malfunctions, although it's irrelevant, right? Because technically you could talk about like evolution and whereby it malfunctions in a way that is still cognitive functional every other way, just not in this um, self-controlled manner. That will still count. Um, Over there, Chuku says the human mind experiences its own consciousness as shifting through urges, thoughts, and feelings and physical actions. People understand their consciousness to be in control of these myriad impulses. Man, you out here using big words, man, speaking in normal sense. But in reality, consciousness does the same simple tasks over and over, giving the impression that it is doing more than it actually is. Good to come Good to come back to what? Okay. Good to come back to enriching conversations. Yeah, shout out to you. You'll own nothing and be happy. Stop quoting I don't know, like, wait, what was it? Like that thing by, I don't know, that guy who mentioned it in some kind of organizational meeting. But yeah, one man, you are being talked about behind your back, sharp knives being thrown everywhere. Have you evolved a little bit? Have you reached our conscious level? Or are you still an AI? Did you evolve, or are you still a machine?
Sorry, carry on. I joined you in the moment. Oh, did I leave?
I think he lost connection. Usually he has
Yes,
better video.
I just came in really with a contrary superior view. Is trying to disparage it as street fighting. If he didn't have any concept of what I was saying, he could have asked me to come back and expand. So
Okay, so assuming
being,
you're listening,
being
that's
highfalutin is not being clever. I think there's a lot of conflation that goes on in some of your conversations. You think
Mhm.
mixing together all these word salads it's just it's a bit nonsensical.
What word salad? Why do you think it's a word salad?
Yeah, because he did a lot of isms and schisms, but there wasn't really anything that came out of it. The substance of what was being said was that, and the example he was citing as well, that there's no authenticity or human uniqueness in an AI generated sort of thing. Even that is not is it doesn't really cohere, because even if AI generates art, it uses references of a bank of human history to generate that art. Similarly, you say there's an element of creativity to the human creation, but that creativity is still banked in references of historical past, and those references of historical parts are documented, and those are the same references that the AI generates from. So I'm not sure that there's that real big distinction that he was trying to use whatever highfalutin whatever it is that I was saying, that I didn't think he quite understood what I was saying, and he went to ad hominems and all that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, shout out to you. We have a $5 buy me a coffee. Someone saying there's to look up FOCAC, China Africa Corporation. So I'll shout out for that. I'll do a stream slash video on this one. I'll definitely do it by today. Thank you very much for the $5 buy me a coffee. I do presume that is flexed up, so I appreciate the support. Um, usually, there's a few high IQ people that will suggest certain topics. It could be Darth, but I don't think Darth has ever. It's only sent money once, right? Over there, but I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'll look up FOCAC. I think this will be an interesting for an economic conversation for the later time. D says, lol, word salad. Just because you don't digest the nutrients of a salad doesn't mean it's devoid of substance. Yeah, you know what? Actually, one man, that is an interesting one, right? That seems like a cop out. Like I hear people say, "Oh, word salad," and this. Is there really such a thing as word salad if what they're saying makes sense? Just because someone doesn't understand it doesn't mean it's. You get
No,
the
no.
point,
If
right?
it- if it makes sense, then it's not word salad. But the fact is, it did not. Not only did it not. You see, this often happens, and I do it in instances as well. So I'm not even standing Mike Ike rather accused. I'm not standing him accused. Sometimes, if I feel that the strength of my argument is not quite substantial enough, I try to lose it in language and try to be highfalutin, which is what I think he did. So all that schisms and isms, it didn't really go to what was being said.
Mhm.
That the evolving technology stands to replace the human space, which will lead to mass depopulation. And that is essentially the point I was getting across. So I didn't really see any logic in anything. Oh, efficiency and all of these three-legged stools and whatnot and whatever it is I was saying. It didn't really address what was being said, which I'm happy to have a superior logic defeat what's being presented. But I think it was trying to hide away somewhat in language. That's really, and then in ad hominems as well.
Mhm. Okay. Ad hominems, word salad. What's going on, one man? Why are you using these
Word
European?
salads. Why am
European
I using these word salads?
yeah, come on. I thought you're a high IQ guy, but now you're saying ad hominem. Next thing you start talking about some other logical errors. I thought you're an intelligent man. Intelligent people don't use European words.
All right. But it was the makings of an interesting conversation, actually, if anybody knew where the parameters of the conversation was. But I thought Flextop and then Ike latterly, they tried to narrow it into just the specificity of efficiency. Nobody's arguing against efficiency. A better way to do things is always the better way to do things. So that's just base level stuff. So nobody's even arguing against. Jar, do you want to jump on? So nobody's even arguing against that. but there's a wider nuance to the artificial intelligence, technology driven world. Now, this universal suffrage of social benefits that is being, why are they looking to go to universal suffrage of social benefits to pay people essentially to sit at home and vegetate? So, why is that? So, that is to say, then the technology has reached that advancement that there's a redundancy in the need for apart from a bracketed, high functioning 20% globally, maybe even less, there's a redundancy from that level downwards, which is a concern. And you were going from um, hunter gatherer to it's just it's a straw man argument. It's a logical fallacy. It's just it didn't really go to
Wait.
the full
So,
core of it. Yeah.
Strawman, ad hominem, word salad. You know what? I don't want to accuse you of word salads, but it sounds like
Yeah.
you're the one using word salads.
No. Yeah, but I think you get what I mean.
You literally just
I don't
named
think what
anything.
I think the parameters of the conversation was too narrow and it's too wider. It's too broad a subject to narrow specificity because we're talking about human evolution, the substitution of the human being with some sort of artificial automation. That's essentially what it is. And what's the time scale? What's the impact? What's the redundancy? What's the follow through? Where do we evolve to into this new system? Who follows through? Who doesn't? So that's where it is. Not whatever bula baloo that you and I were talking about.
Okay, fair enough. I see what you're saying. I think we try to transverse uh, different levels. We try to transverse different levels, but you were out there and able to sort of move between the score points.
No,
And
I,
so
I'm not sure that I'm not. And I will concede if I felt that was the case, but that wasn't at all the case.
maybe you're
I think it was unnecessarily highfalutin, somewhat pretentiousness, trying to effect some sort of intellectualism that didn't really address where the subject matter was.
okay. D2 says WTF. One man, I am disappointed. What you're losing the points on intellectual rigor. People here feel like you lost your position.
No, don't worry. My position is always intact. But uh, yes. So what's the substance of what the guy was saying? The clip that you played earlier on.
Yeah,
All right.
the guy earlier, his name is Brett Weinstein. Very intelligent man, one of the highest level logic type people that I know. However, when talking about our AI, and I know the clip could be out of context from a larger conversation, he was focusing on universal basic income, stating that it's not going to happen. He was actually agreeing with your points, right? And his reasoning is that communism, aka paying people to do nothing, isn't going to work, right? And instead projecting sentiments such as equality when UBI has nothing to do with equality. It's actually to do with non redundancy by giving people a chance to still eat, sleep, and operate in the system, right? So I was just disagreeing with the conceptualization. I was like, no, it's not nothing to do with equality. This is just actually the last solution of capitalism to allow people to still survive in the new world that's to come. People like me who have skills of amazing intuition, we're going to be the ones to actually hold value. People who can't think and abstract at this level will become fodder. That was what the point was.
Yeah, but is that not exactly my point? Is that not exactly my point? And by the way, you become further as well because I don't think you have the functionality to the space that the world is evolving into, but the mass becomes further, and that's exactly my point. But I think you have that, Raven. So let me be quiet so we hear from you.
Waiting for
Yeah.
King.
I mean, welcome. This is a topic that we've broached before a while back as well, but it was kind of like skimmed, and it was not pressed upon. And I think it's very interesting. One man, what you have to say about Ike, as much as I have respect for him, sometimes he does make things a bit too convoluted than necessary and all that stuff.
No, he tries to hide away because he doesn't really understand the substance of what's being said, and it feels
I'm not
yeah.
sure he tries to hide the way necessarily. I think he could just reduce it down a little bit and all that kind of stuff to okay, maybe you have a point in that. Maybe you have a point in that. Maybe. I don't know. We don't know people's motivations. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's an interesting topic as well. I've always thought this like yes, this is a path that humanity is on, and it cannot be stopped as well because, like, as you see the trajectory of mankind, especially in very very competitive environments and all that stuff, things become more and more and more and more scarce as well. So people start to dominate, start to compete and dominate. It leads to this, and they use all the means necessary to dominate, to dominate and conquer as well. So if somebody can program a robot to kind of now, like let's say Elon Musk and all that stuff, he has his SpaceX. People are now starting to explore planets, or you can create a private army of AI robots and all that stuff to do security for you. What is to stop you from then gaining more and advancing in terms of policy and all international policy and gaining more? You have money, you have robots, you have a standing army as well. Take that to the scenario of space. What could happen there? So it's like uh, everything is all concerned. We are consuming the world, but creating new things from it. But in that, we are depleting the whole world at the same time. And I'm saying a whole bunch of things and all that stuff, but I will refine them as I go. So yes, it is the case. It is the case that this will be a universal basic income. Is that kind of socialist impetus that like makes people want to that they say we gotta do something for the poor people as well. So that will come. This is the trajectory, Dr. Kizo and one man. Did you understand what
Okay.
I said there, Dr. Kizo?
Yeah. So I understand what you're
You
talking
remember
about.
the conversation we had and say if you don't do it, somebody else will do it. Just because if you can put regulations, about it, oh, we must regulate AI and all that stuff so that it doesn't place human beings. We need to be careful. If you don't do it, somebody else will do it because it advantages them to do it.
Yes, I agree. I agree with some of that sentiment, right? However, even if someone does it, doesn't mean you have to apply the results of your AI research unilaterally across all human economic activity. You can do it
Mm,
and focus on security, for example, or high output, let's say, intellectual discoveries, for example, medicine and chemistry, for example, right? This is a perfect example where you can actually apply AI, but you're not really going to. Okay, let me use science as an example, right? The way we built science really requires a high level of intuition, far more than processing power. The AI will be able to go and look at the chemical structure of a specific drug that we like or does things that we like. The AI will be able to do billions of calculations to find similar structures. Then it will be able to find the similar structures that are also easy to make, meaning they have a synthesis pathway that doesn't require too much.
mm,
Just it's more efficient, right? It doesn't require exotic or expensive precursors.
mhm,
AI will do all of that, right? It will replace. Yeah, we're already doing it actually right now, right? Computational chemistry and all that kind of stuff. However, you're
yeah.
not going to replace the person that actually builds these high level conceptualization about scientific theories. Ultimately, what you'll do is you'll build computational theories which are based on emergent processes, but you're not really going to replace that intuitionistic things that humans currently are part of, unless you create a new science that's based on computation. However, computation is limited because not everything is just calculus and looking at things from purely geometric means. Some of it really does require certain leaps of
Mm,
comprehension,
mm,
which I just don't think AI will reach anytime soon. So
mm.
not in the
So
next.
it becomes a case, or it becomes a case now our value systems are elevated. What now becomes value, right? Does the human being himself and his intuition becomes value, or the
Yes,
profit, or profit? What
yes,
motivates people?
yes. Let me give a perfect sort of low-level example. In Africa, materials are worth more than human labor. Do you agree with that? People are paid much
Uh,
less. The plumber and the electrician is paid much less than the materials you're using to build your house.
yes,
I'll give you an
let's go with
example, right? A builder, a bricklayer in Africa, gets paid $10 a day for
yeah.
like a 7-hour shift. The bricks that he's laying down cost way more. The toilet that he's setting costs more, right, than how much he's getting paid a day. Meanwhile, in the West, the labor is worth way more than the materials cost because they've industrialized and now they value human labor way more than they value the material. Do you accept that
Mhm,
argument? Right.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm,
depending on the culture and the unique specifics, I actually think that we'll just evolve. We'll change the order, and human ingenuity or just human experience, a touch of human. So, this house was built by humans, minimum AI input. That's going to be worth
mhm.
more in the market, right, for the rich than some house printed, 3D printed using some machines. You get the point
you're
there, right?
you're much more hopeful you're much more hopeful. I'm surprised you're much more hopeful about human beings that you think a human being. No, no, no. Okay, so no. That's not the case. People are motivated by profit, and we understand that, right? So it doesn't.
Correct.
Okay, okay. To a certain
I
extent,
agree.
yeah. So but it's potential. I don't know when it's gonna get to that. That is like almost at the extreme. It's almost at the extreme where you find, perhaps you will have to get all the way to the extreme to find out. Perhaps the human being is it's what is of value and all that stuff. You're gonna have to be scraping at the bottom. But in the immediate term, the competition will be so thick. It will just be that this is going to be the trajectory. Just consume as much and accumulate as much as you can and
So,
all that
Beth
stuff.
Raven, let me ask you a couple of things. So, AI, let's be using AI here as a baseline for conversation. AI comes from the digital space, and also AI comes in physical hardware. We're talking about the materials used to create a robotic structure that has the dexterity as human beings. Are
Mm.
you okay with that conceptualization?
Yeah. Go
Okay. So I'm very sure that cognitively, so the digital AI is going to reach artificial general intelligence very soon in the next 50 years, meaning it can reason just like a person, a high IQ person. I believe that.
Mm.
However, what I'm not too sure will happen anytime soon, and here's where like physics and materials engineering is lagging behind, is we are very far from reaching uh, the physical ability of machines to have dexterity like a human being. We're very
Uh,
far away from that. Also, the
uh,
materials cost, mining cost, the
uh,
what materials are we going to use? It's going to be rare earth minerals probably, batteries, lithium, all that stuff. All these economic activities that already exist when it comes to the materials, I believe that's where now money is going to be at, right? Because what we're
yeah.
doing right now is making this insane assumption that everything is cognitive, everything is digital. No, I really believe that, and what will be fueling this activity will be the physicalization of AI into a machine body that is just as nimble as us. But that will now then put countries in Africa and any sort of mining companies at the highest level, right? And here's where, of course, as humans, all that stuff. So what that will do is allow us to go to space, start doing asteroid mining and all that stuff. I don't think there will be a shortage of jobs. There will always be a competition between materials, cost, and efficiency of these machines, right? So and they'll kind of be doing that whole thing there, whereby you have
Mm.
like two machines for every 10, sorry, 8 people. working in tandem. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing an expansion of the economic parameters, aka interstellar, as opposed to it now being insular and cannibalistic.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Yes,
want you
it,
to
there
engage
is,
with that.
but there is potential for expansion and all that stuff. But what you're saying, Dr. Kazo, there is, although you can expand your market and all that stuff, you can expand your market, but still, if the robots have actually, if robots have, or AI has actually gotten to a point, it has achieved the dexterity that human beings have, not the intuition, but the dexterity. If it has achieved that, then why would you need human beings as a single person? Why would I need human beings? I'm Amazon, I got, or Ocado, I got robots, I got AIs to do the job for me. Why would I need human beings? Just because? Why?
Okay, good point.
You understand?
You gonna
Well, so I've always thought this, like, what this is leading to is, let's say people start asteroid mining.
policy?
Even in my field, and in the technical field, you will always find, for a huge network, is only 5, 6, 8 engineers. Why is that? The rest is just like people pressing button, one button, two buttons, and all that kind of stuff. You find just a few engineers that's doing something. Yeah, you understand me? A few people at the control center, but the rest are people just pressing one button. I'm not saying anything, but if AI was to replace their jobs and all that stuff, so it also comes with, in asteroid mining or something. Finally we're starting to mine asteroids and all that kind of stuff. If the robots have the dexterity to do that, they obviously they do. Their bodies are meant. Their bodies can survive space. We are not meant for space unless we kind of terraform space or something, or kind of like, what do you call it in Star Wars? They call it wild space. We turn the wild space into something livable for ourselves. That's the only way we can survive as well. If not, if that's not the case, then it will be that these machines, these highly artificial intelligent machines, will be doing those jobs as well, and those people who are doing that will be the ones to be gaining and profiting a lot more from the market. Why do they need to some women? You just need a few human beings to do the main things. To a point, and if machines keeps expanding more, if this AI keeps that improving more and all that stuff, I don't think they can ever get to a human intuition. I don't believe that. But it can come close to it as well. So I will say, in the end, one man is going to become God, and I don't mean that to you, one man.
One man. Okay, interesting.
Anyway, I hold on that father. I'm gonna go do something else and all that, guys. I have to commit some config. So I'll come
No,
back
that's
to
cool.
this. Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, and to be honest, we've been here for 2 hours, and I need to start the other show on the Africa Summit in the next couple hours. But one man, what did you mean by word salad? You're the one who's talking about all these white man terms, like what was it again? Ad hominem, word salad. You mentioned all these things, right? What what from what I said was word salad? Or are you just a vegetarian and you love word salads?
Well, all of everything is said, but I can't really come in at the moment. I'm just really there as a space
Okay.
filler. But if you need to shut it down, or yeah, just carry on.
Yeah. I'll be back in 2 hours' time with the show on Africa later on. But yeah, it was a good conversation. We shouldn't always be talking about dust. Sometimes we should talk about the future. And just because we're backwards doesn't mean we have to be behind. Um, you know, African lives matter. It's undignified to be enslaved by the AI that we create. 100%. And also, I think what people are sort of focusing on here is somehow that this whole system is going to be um, linear, like things will just happen. People won't allow themselves to be enslaved. People will fight back. People will vote. If we have democracy, right? I think what we could have done is one man could have argued that democracy itself will be challenged and things will change on behalf of that sort of um, realm, which I would kind of say, hey, fine. I guess some countries they'll challenge democracy. They'll have some kind of civil system like this anime I watched once, whereby the AI controls the politics as well. So therefore, it'll have certain policies in there and be fully efficient. But in general, as things stand with what we have as democracy, I just don't see machines taking over unless you have a rogue oligarch that has these machines in enough numbers to challenge international order. But if that's the case, why haven't they already done it with nuclear weapons, right? AI will just create more efficient regular tools as opposed to actually create world-defining tools. Meaning, if we can't destroy the world right now with nuclear weapons, I don't see any rogue oligarch going to challenge the world status quo and be successful. Because, yeah, that's what I would challenge there. D says, you know what? I might side with AI with all these humans. The issue is the AI might be just as bad or even worse than humans. Yeah, maybe it's even better. Over there, we don't really know. I'm surprised you have more faith in humanity, Dr. K. Okay. I'll respond to that next time. Give robots a chance. Robots' lives matter. But anyways, guys, thanks for the sponsor of the show. Today we got One Man over there. We got Flexed Up with the $5. We got Ike with the $100 over there. We appreciate the support and everyone else who came through. We'll be back in 2 hours. Let's go ahead with a banger. Let's listen to the best musician around. Welcome to the Kaizorian Experience. Over here, we're going to be talking about everything African. We're going to be having debates, discussions, entertainment, as well as learning about business, art, history, and everything in between. Cultural, tribalism, and everything. We're going to be out here debating with some really interesting stuff. So like the video, share the video, and make sure you subscribe. Subscribe for the best experience ever. This is the biggest channel on the Afrosphere. So come and join the team, become a Kaizorian, and join the Kaizorian Empire.
Within this premise, and I exist within this bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like the blue sky. I'ma fly like bird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma throw my bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fight like bluebird in the sky. I'ma eat like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Back again like the second coming. Strumming my vocal cords like the hummingbird in the sky. Y'all can't deny this. Real rap lyrics, it's like I ain't got no rhyming through the sky limit. What is skin tone, shade of color, but a parallel form of frequency like a ringtone on your phone. Melanin expression, tied up in the universe, feeling like God. Is this really us? Is it serious? Is it really wrong to be diverse? I'm a divergent, immerse myself like an ocean beneath its waves. Be a divergent, born to be different. Indigo child, wild like canary, born to be a bluebird in the sky. Flying high like a bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Everybody scream bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. Everybody, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bone black, sweet like a berry. Flying high like a canary. Scary with my hoodie on. Hating on my vibe on the street that you'll be feeling my frequency of the song. But I ain't